Gather round, friends. It's time for Officials Tales. Hosted by three retired sports referees that coaches throughout Northern Ohio knew as the Three Blind Mice. They are authors of the book called Officials Tales. So let's meet the authors and your hosts, Jimmy Borgia, Rick Hall, and Don Nardecchia for today's edition of Officials Tales. Now here's your host, Rick Hall.
Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining us as always. Here with, like Don said there in that great introduction, Jimmy Georgia Borgia and Don Nardo Nardecchia. And boy, do we got a great show for you tonight. We got two local young officials that came up, unfortunately, under our tutelage, and we damaged them as much as we could, but hey, they still made it to the top. So we couldn't have done too bad. So we have Kurt Lever and Ryan Bowers coming to join us here shortly. And but until they meet us, Jim, how's life treating you?
Hey, I'm getting better. I had a cold knock me down for a couple of days. I couldn't make my therapy for my heart, not my brain. I thought I'd get that in before Rick put it another way.
Hey, I can't help it, you know.
Yeah.
What would Sigmund Freud say? I don't know. Look, you're that. You know what they say? You're that kind of crazy that like one therapist can't do it. You need to go to like a school or something where a whole bunch of them can work on you.
Right. Yeah.
You know, like George.
Be like the Three Stooges, where the professor wants to study your brain.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yep.
So how's everything with Nardo? Good.
Everything's going good down here. Hey, we had 56 degrees this afternoon. We went out for the second walk of the day. Beautiful weather, and I think all that cold weather you guys sent down here over the last 10 days or so is gone. So now we're looking at 50s for about the 50 to maybe 60 Wednesday and Thursday here, but at 50s for the next couple of weeks.
Well, that's not too bad. And
wonderful in January.
Family's doing well. I heard you said that you saw Anderson Virgil. Now that's a famous name around here. His niece, is that what you said today at Clemson?
Yeah, his niece plays for Syracuse. Interesting, during the warm-ups, their team was right in front of us. I saw the name. So I looked in my program, saw that she was from Brazil. And so I looked up Andy. And sure enough, that he kind of tutored her in the game once she saw a basketball game and actually in Toronto with him and his sister. And he worked a lot with her, and you can see it. She's a 6'4" player. She shoots a three when she gets but she's making a lot of them in warm-ups, I'll tell you that. Got great footwork around the basket, a good presence, a smart player. She went for 16 points and 12 rebounds, so leading Syracuse in both those categories. And let me see if we can get a shot here.
Hey, there she is.
There we go. Yeah, you can see the name. That's the thing. We put this out to Rick and Jim and our friend Denny Foltz, who was on our previous show. And Denny knew the answer. When he saw the name, he got right back with me on it. That's either Anderson's daughter or niece. Bingo.
Well, I will tell you from watching basketball at pretty much every level, the game has really evolved to a three-point game. I mean, it's really, watch the Cavs. I mean, they literally live and die from the three-point lane. And that's why they've lost the last three games, because they're shooting horrifically from three. Wow. That and their defense has been a little slow, which could be because they're tired. They played 3 games in 4 days, something like that.
Yeah, sure.
And I think rebounding, boy, their rebounding was horrific last night. So I think, and it's a different game. When you're shooting threes, the rebounds go completely different. I mean, they're way out. I mean, you can't have your guards just take off. I mean, you
Well,
literally, you
when
really
you're
need
hitting
to
the
help them
threes, it
out.
also pulls the defense out a little more, so the guys that slash the bucket can get
Yep.
to the bucket. So
Yep.
that's what we saw
Absolutely.
today, and in a women's game even here. But yeah, that's the thing. If you're depending on a 3-point shot, so that you can run your offense, you better be hitting them in the first quarter because
Oh, yeah.
you can get way behind the ball there.
Fast. Well, it looks like we got Kurt ready to roll, so we're going to go ahead and bring him on. And let's welcome Mr. Kurt Lover. Hey, Kurt, how you doing, buddy?
Hey guys, good to be with you.
Good to have you
Good
with
to
us.
have you. You know, and we were just saying, you know, it's great to bring you on the show. I know Ryan's going to join us shortly. And I know we've known you, you know, since the very beginning. We refereed you in high school, and and that's probably
Sorry
why he
about
wanted
that.
to ref. He wanted to ref, you know, and get even with us, I guess. I don't know. He's like, yeah, those guys suck. I don't know, whatever. But anyway.
Well, you know, hey Rick, you know, I had somebody tell me one time that there's only 2 reasons people do things, and one is that they saw somebody that inspired them so well that they wanted to be like them, and the other reason is that they saw something being done a certain way and they thought it's got to be able to be done better than that. So I'll let you decide which one inspired me.
Let me guess. B. Let me guess. What do you think of that, Jim? I think he's talking about you and your cookies.
Well, you know, the game that me, Don, and Billy Seitz did over at Monroeville the one year. I know Kurt's grandma real well, and we got to talking one day down at the rec center, and we've had this story on an earlier episode, and she wanted to know if we had any of her grandson's ball games, and no, we didn't have any scheduled, but eventually we got a call from the AD over there, and the next time I saw his grandma, I said, well, you know, you can't call no fouls on my grandsons. And I go, what? He said, I can't call no fouls on the grandson. And I looked at her and I said, well, I like oatmeal cookies. And she says, what's that got to do with anything? I said, well, I figured you were asking me a favor, so that entitled me to have a favor too. And she says, I'll make you some oatmeal raisin cookies. I said, I don't think you understand. I said, I never said the word raisin. And as we go along, the boys got oatmeal cookies that night. And one of the players' fathers from Buckeye Central come in. He had a bite. And after he took the bite, I looked at him. I said, now, if number so-and-so or number so-and-so follows your son, you just might not hear our whistle. He said, what do you mean? I said, the player's grandma made these cookies for us. And he got a big kick out of that. Whether we did or didn't, I couldn't tell you. But I think we called the game fair.
There weren't many games I didn't use all 4 or 5 of them. So it wouldn't surprise me.
That's why they give them to you, you know.
There's a reason you're allotted 5.
Yeah.
Right.
But, you know, and we're glad to have you on, Kurt. I mean, I know Don and I have had the pleasure of working with you. We've actually seen you come up through the ranks, and we know you've gone quite far. And we know you've earned it. We just had Billy Foltz on here, and, you know, working with him in football and watching him make it, you know, where he's got, you know, and same thing with Ryan. I mean, I'm sure I speak for all of us when I say, you know, we couldn't be prouder of you guys. I mean, you've taken the Bay and the guys from this area way farther than we ever did. We're glad you're carrying on the tradition. So that being said, maybe you can give us a quick, overview of, you know, how everything went for you from the beginning to where you're at.
Sure. Yeah. I appreciate you saying all that. It's nice things to say, but, so I actually got my license when I was in college. It was kind of a throw-in class, my sophomore year. So I think that's I'm in year 18 or 19 right now, and took it on campus. Had 25 kids or so in the class. You guys doing football, you probably remember the name from Ohio State and local Mike DeAndrea. He was in the class with me. I think he was a 5th-year senior at that point. He wasn't really playing football, but he was in the class and a bunch of others, and taught on campus, obviously. Kind of the neat thing there was, we weren't going around to schools to do scrimmages because it was an out of season time when we were taking the class. And so we'd go to the rec center, go to the RPAC, and we'd scrimmage each other and rotate out refereeing each other. So that's kind of how our class went there. And then you had the choice of whether you wanted to go through and get certified or not at the end of the class. And I did. The reason I took the class, actually, backing up a minute, my brother was in junior high at Monroeville, and I walked in to go to one of his games on a weekend, and the junior high athletic director was an old football coach of mine. He says, "Hey," he goes, "you got any black sweatpants at home?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Go get them." He goes, "I got a referee that didn't show up." I said, "Okay." So I didn't live far from the school, ran home, got a pair of black pants. He had a jersey and a whistle, little, wasn't a Fox 40 or nothing. It was a little rattle whistle with Monroeville Eagles lanyard. And and I don't even remember who the other guy was I was working with, but just went out there and did the best I could with absolutely no background at all. And he goes, "Well, this guy just turned back every game he had with me. So if you get your license," he goes, I'll give you every game while you're doing it." And so that's why I went and got my license. So I spent the next 2.5 years or whatever it was, kind of just doing that weekend stuff back around local junior high, 5th and 6th grade, stuff like that. Didn't really get serious about doing much more than that, honestly. And when I got out of college, moved back home, got into going into local meetings here for the Bay Area. Because before then, I was just kind of a nomad. I'd go to meetings at Northwood High School, all the other Caboa, all the other big associations down around Columbus. But anyways, I got back around here, and I don't know if it was a younger guy in the crowd. I had, Don was one, Andy Nappy was another, Keith Newton, all kind of cornered me in the back of Sandusky High School auditorium the one night, and he said, "Hey, who are you? And where are you going? What are you doing?" And I just kind of introduced myself about what I was doing, just doing junior high stuff. "Well, you need to be doing freshman games." So, okay, well, I don't really know if I need to be doing them, but I'll do some freshman games. And you guys remember you had sign-ups at the time. They'd have a sheet. Well, I got all these games that need to be covered. So they'd pass them around and, okay, throw your name on these things. So I do some freshman games. And I was perfectly content, junior high, freshman and below, whatever. And after doing some freshman games for, I don't know, a year or two, whatever, maybe it wasn't that much. Some of the other signers that were at the meetings, "Oh, you need to be starting to do JV. You need to start doing JV." And some of the officials you work with kind of push you to, okay, at that level, where are you at? What are you doing? How many games you doing? All that stuff. And okay, fine, I'll do some JV games, and you kind of get into that. And there was a lot of big name guys around doing varsity games, so it really wasn't thinking about getting into varsity or anything. That was kind of, that's not a big deal. I'm happy doing JV. And I remember Andy Nappy, he kind of pulled me aside and said, "Hey, you're gonna start working on some varsity games for me next year." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And he told me he had a friend, you guys remember the old SLL, his assigner friend for the SLL, and Jim Yeager. And he goes, "Tell Yeagers you're going to be working some games for me next year on varsity." He said, "Tell him he needs to give you some games." So I was working a full JV schedule for Yags. And I sat down with Yeager one night in the stands at Gibsonburg, and I said, "Hey, Andy told me to tell you he's giving me varsity games next year." And he goes, "Yeah, so what?" So, it wasn't like it was all straight line, but I don't know if he was messing with me or whatever. I ended up working some varsity games for him, but anyways, just kind of feeling your way along and taking guidance from people as they give it to you. And worked my first varsity game. First boys varsity game was at St. Mary's High School. I don't even remember who they played. St. Mary's, and I worked with Jeff Todd and Joe Miller, and that was neat. Took Grandma along with me to that one, Jim.
There you
Took
go.
Grandma and
There you go.
a lady named Harriet Schlesman is a family friend. She's passed now, but she went along with us to the game. We went to BW3s afterwards with Jeff. So, and then
Well, see, that's because I taught Jeff about the after game thing, you know.
Oh, heck yeah. He went with us a lot of times.
Yeah.
We worked with Jeff a few times. We used to pick him up because he worked like third shift or something.
Yeah.
At an auto part plant or something. I don't remember. Exactly.
Yep.
Something like that. But yeah, Jeff's a great guy.
Yeah. So I got into doing some varsity there, and spent a year or two kind of floating around and working a part schedule the first year and then full time the next year, and filling in with guys, and filled in with you guys. Filled in with John. Got to work with a lot of games with John Gurney and Wayne Blankenship.
Good for you.
Boy, those guys were around forever.
That was great experience.
That was a great partnership there with those guys.
Yeah, and that was great to get to work with those guys. And then Ed Kurt was one. He and Dan Strayer. If you remember Dan, he's I don't think he does it anymore, but we would go up to Toledo and work a lot of games up that way. And then Dan, I think he got out of it, and we pulled Kyle Kesey, and Kyle was working with us for a couple of years. And then Kyle moved out of the area, and when he moved, then we brought Ryan on board. And so Ed and Ryan and I worked together for a couple of years. Worked a lot of games up at Danbury, actually, which was kind of convenient because Ryan would drive his 10 minutes from Norwalk to Monroeville. I'd drive 15 minutes from Monroeville to Margaretta, and Ed would drive 15 minutes from Margaretta up to Danbury. So nobody had too long of a drive. Wow. And then Ed took a superintendent's job down in Findlay, and that just happened to be the year after Charlie Ridenauer moved back into the area. So we were able to pick Charlie up on our crew, and I couldn't tell you how many years ago that's been now. I could probably figure it out by asking when Ed took the Findlay job, but yeah, so we've been a crew of 3 since then, and been pretty steady. So it's been a lot of fun. We're all close to the same age. Charlie and I are actually the same graduating class, and so it's fun working with guys like that you get along with, and you can kind of have the same philosophy on calling the game, and comfortable, know what they're going to call. There's no real surprises out there with those guys. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. When you have 3 guys, us 3, when we were working, there was no, real blind spots. We knew exactly where we were going to be and what we were going to call. Even when we had incidents where things would come up, we were able to get together and, because of working together so long, we were able to decipher the situation. And some of those, if you read the book, some of those are pretty high pressure situations. And, we were able to put it together. So, in a sportsmanlike fashion, and I know from personal experience working with you, it was fun. We had so much fun. A lot of times you'd come with your dad, and that was always fun. I loved talking to him. I think he went to school with my wife, I think.
Yep.
But it was always so much fun talking basketball, and we could talk football because I don't know if you still football coach, but I know you did. Actually, I just saw your former coach. What was it? A week ago, Thursday. Yeah, I was at sidelines. He come walking in, and I'm like, Coach. So I went right up to him, was talking to him a little bit at the bar, He's still the same guy. I remember him for years and years. So, but and and now that you've gotten to you worked state finals and semifinals several years, right?
Yeah. I'd have to look back and see exactly what it was, but he started off working actually as alternate at some regional games, regional assignments, and then the state alternate, where you get to sit on the sidelines and actually sit at the table. You're kind of soaking it all up. You're part of the crew, but you're not on the court. It's a neat experience, and you kind of get to see what the whole process is, so you're not blindsided by it. And then you get to I had a girls I know that my first one was a girls semi final, and then I believe, I don't know if I had two girls or just moved into boys after that, but yeah, I've been alternating so far most years, every other year, or there's been a couple years here and there off, but yeah, I had 3 or 4 at this point on the boys side. So it's been a lot of fun. Had a lot of really good games, especially at the regional level. Some of the state games actually don't end up being quite as good as the regional games are. The last 4 years, I was fortunate. I had ended up with Ottawa Glandorf with Colin White, who's playing with the Buckeyes now. I had him 4 years straight in the regionals, either a semi or a final. And he's a great player. Just as a freshman, Ottawa Glandorf is such a great program. They've got one freshman being him and 11 seniors on the team. The next year it's one sophomore and 11 seniors on the team, and the next year it's him and maybe another junior and like 10 seniors on the team. It's just unbelievable how they continue to reload over there. But yeah, that stuff like that sticks out, and you get to have some high level ball you're working like that.
Oh yeah, and we talk about that a lot. And people don't, and you'd be surprised, we still get questions, about the game. I said, and they go, well, do you ref every game the same? And we're like, no, absolutely not. Well, why? Well, I'll say, let me give you an example of one of our normal weeks. Okay. Tuesday, we're at Tiffin Calvert. Thursday, we're at West Holmes, and I believe you were with us at West Holmes.
That was a nice night, yeah.
Yeah, I remember making the comment, like, I think everybody here looks the same. They must all be related. Anyway, that being said. And then Friday night, we had the Monroeville game. And then Saturday, we're at Toledo Whitmer. Now, do you ref Monroeville like you do Toledo Whitmer? Absolutely not. Toledo Whitmer are men, like men, and Monroeville, they're still growing. So, you have to get in your mind that you're going to referee a game completely different tonight. Monroeville can't take that little bump and go to the basket because they're going to get knocked to the ground, where the Whitmer guys are going to either go through the bump or they're going to jump over the kid, which actually I laughed about that in our last show, where we had the first time we ever had Toledo Whitmer, we had Nigel Hayes and Don. There was Don and I and another guy, and the first call always buys beer, by the way. I don't know if that's your rule, but it isn't ours. Well, the first call was by Don Nardekia. Nigel Hayes, the ball was shot. The ball hit the back of the rim, came off. Nigel Hayes jumps over him, and tomahawks it. And Don comes running over, block. And I'm like, wait, what? What do you block? He just cleared him. And he goes, well, took away his landing space. Okay. So, that's how it goes with us. But yeah, it's amazing. We've been blessed that way.
You get into a game, you got to kind of feel out what they can and can't play through. And that's where having a patient whistle is important, because
100%.
You think you're going to go out there and the first thing you're going to do is blow your whistle as soon as you see something. You got to watch the start, the process and the finish of the play until you know whether or not it actually was a foul worth calling, because there's a lot of contact on the floor, and you talk about different levels. there's different types of contact, and not all
Sure.
contact's a foul. So,
Well, and I will tell you this. Now, this is my personal opinion. I know it absolutely helps not only with experience, that's obvious, but if you're a football ref, you have that extra beat to throw the flag. And I think that sort of in your mind gives you that chance to put things together before you react. And
you bring up my old football coach. He tried to give me some advice when because his son got into it too. He was official for a little bit. And he was telling us the one time, he said, you know what I think would make officials really, really good? So okay, coach, I'll bite. What are you thinking? He goes, hold the whistle. Just hold the whistle.
Mhm.
He said, don't put it in your mouth up and down the court. Just hold it. Then you got to think about whether you need to blow it or not.
Yeah, that's the way the NBA does. And
Fair
we
point.
do that in football. We do that in
Right.
football, and it's just different. I mean, if you can think about it for just a second, that matters. So, what do you think, Don?
Well, you go back to officiating the game with what you have in front of you. And even if that night up at Whitmer, if I remember right, they were playing Toledo St. Francis, who was really bad. And my thought immediately was, we're not going to have anybody running in, try to take a block when this guy's flying in the air. We're going to get it before somebody gets hurt doing that crap, and make him play basketball and not try to get him cheap fouls. So, part of with not much we can do
Right.
to keep somebody from getting hurt, except to call stuff early, so like, we're not playing that game tonight. We're going to play
Right.
basketball, and you don't have, some nights you have to do that, some nights you don't. You just get the feeling based on the circumstances, not always what level, because those were both Division I schools, but one had two exceptional players. Well, I'll tell you what, they had more than that, because yeah, that's right. Six of them played either Division I football or basketball.
Yes,
Yeah, that's right.
6.
Whitmer did, and
Yes.
so St. Francis was. I know they're doing pretty well right now, if I remember correctly. But
Mhm.
boy, back then they were not
Oh.
good at all. Yeah.
Well, and going to your point, that same game, Don, we had their post player who ended up being a D1 football player for Michigan. And he's huge. I mean, 6'6", 6'7", 260. Well, when he posted up, I mean, he literally, his elbows touched both sides of the free throw line.
He looked like a goalpost.
I swear to God. And the guys would try to cut around him. And a couple of times they ran into his elbow. And then, Don, we got together. I think it was after the first quarter. And Don said, hey, we probably ought to do something about this. And he goes, because, I mean, yeah, he's standing there, but he's really not inside his framework. He's sort of.
He's not big enough frame the way it was.
I'm
like,
well, so the next time somebody did that, Don nailed him. So, and after that, he sort of, compacted it.
Yeah, and then the coach, Don, yeah, he's just trying to get a pass. I just, yeah, he can. But I said, he's got the width of his body straight up to the floor.
Yeah,
for him to extend out like this, he's taking too much space away. And if somebody hits it, that's on him.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't happen. Did not happen the rest of the game. I mean, they know the rule. They know what they start him doing. If it works, they go with it. If you get it and they give them the proper explanation, it's over. They just stop. That's
Well, we have a ton of funny stories, and we can keep going on and on forever. But let's ask our guest tonight, seeing as Ryan doesn't seem to be kicking in here. Tell us a couple of stories. You know what? Because you have the cross pollination of being a football coach as well. You can tell us some football stuff that's acceptable online, and you can tell us a couple of funny basketball things that's happened to you out there.
Oh, well, I don't know. On the football side, I tried to keep a lower profile on that. That's I try to stay out of that. But you always knew when you were going to have a good crew come on the field for football, because they would they'd focus on what was important. That was always the point there. They start asking kind of crazy questions before the game, or the coach would come over and tell you, you hear a crew ask about this or that or whatever, and no, and you just think in the back of your head, man, we might have a long one if that's what they're worried about. So, and I've always kind of taken that to heart too on the basketball court, because I don't know if you guys realize, we really don't even do much for pregame anymore. Used to have pregame captains meetings and everything. And now some places will want it, and certain conferences want it. Some don't. Some don't say a preference one way or the other. Your pregame anymore. You used to come out there and tell them all types of stuff with these kids, and they can do this, they can do that. You don't do this. Help us out here. They're not focused on what we're saying. They're not going to remember it 2 steps away from the huddle. So get out there, and one of the best lines I ever had relayed to me, I stole it. And some of the best stuff is stuff you end up stealing. We had a pretty heated rivalry game we were coming up with, and brought the guys on the court, and I was the R, and I said, okay. I said, you have anything to say to them? Nope. Okay, you have anything to say to him? Nope. I said, keep it that way. All right, let's go. It was
very straightforward. There you
That's
go.
the best way.
No crap. Let's move on. And same with the coaches. You go over, hey, you got any questions for us? And then, not really. Every once in a while somebody will say something, but not really. There's I'm sure Ryan's probably got some stuff he can come up with, but I think he actually sent me a text that he was waiting in the room. So I don't know if he is or not.
Well, let's see. Well, I got him up, but he's not there.
He's in the green room.
He's still there. No, he's here. I just
Okay.
haven't. He's just not on. Text him back and say, hey, turn your camera on.
Yeah, I need to turn his camera on.
Well, speaking of the
Can you
coaches,
guys hear me?
I
There
can
you
hear
are.
you. I can't see you, but I can hear you.
Yeah, sorry, I'm driving. I'm coming back from my still back from my girlfriend's daughter's 4-year-old birthday party. So I have a face for a radio. So I don't have my screen on.
That's what we told Mark Fogg too. It was great. But anyway, but yeah, going back to what you said, Kurt, that we always had the same saying to the coaches. We always came up, you're properly equipped. You got any questions? Yeah, we'll answer any question you have. But if you start making statements, we're going to do something completely different. Mm-hmm. And and that message gets through. That, and the other quick, and we always talk about that to young officials. Never talk to a coach outside the box, ever.
Mm-hmm.
If he's out of the box, just look down and start walking.
Yeah,
he's gonna walk. He's gonna look right back and go, "Oh shit!" He's gonna get the "oh shit" look, and he's gonna walk right. Or she. I shouldn't be facetious that way, but yeah. But yeah, that's yeah. And I'll tell you, I know over our careers we've had crazy stories of just nutty things that happen. Football. I had a football team bring a sledgehammer on the football field to start the game. And I'm like, wait, what? They come running by us. We were in the end zone doing the national anthem, and they come running right by us with a sledgehammer. And I'm like, no. Well, we always bring. I'm like, well, not tonight. You're not. You're not having no damn sledgehammer out here. And we had a kid basketball. Now this was, we got captain circles, and he had rubber bands on his wrist. And we walked up to him, and I said, hey, what's the deal with the rubber bands? He goes, well, they're really lucky. He goes, every time I screw up, I snap myself. I'm like, oh, really? He goes, well, I haven't lost, and they've been really lucky. I said, well, they're not lucky for you tonight. He goes, what do you mean? I said, because you ain't wearing them. He goes, oh, like, oh, no, those are coming off. And then, it's just a crazy thing. I know Don and I, we had a girl that had socks that had capes on them. And we're standing at
like
center court. I swear to God.
superhero socks.
Like, yeah,
I don't know
superhero
if they're
socks.
Superman or whatever, but there was a little cape
Yeah.
on the back of the sock that when she'd run,
It-
it'd flap a little. I mean, it couldn't have been much longer like this.
Oh,
but it was just
no.
weird. And the coach says, "There's got to be illegal." I said, there's nothing in the rule book that says, that can't be, if that's part of the sock, there's
Well-
nothing that says, now, if you want to send that to Columbus for a ruling, we'll wait and see
Yeah.
what they say. But that's,
Yeah.
no.
Well, you know what's funny?
Well,
is Don and I are.
I'll tell you a
course-
good one. And I don't remember if we were as a threesome that night down at Galleon. They were playing Tiffin, and Tiffin's point guard thought he was Stephen Curry.
Oh, the
Had his
mouthpiece.
mouthpiece that he was chewing on all
Yeah.
the time. When he'd go to the free throw line, that thing was hanging out of his mouth. He was chewing. It's like Curry, like Steph Curry does, or used to do.
Yeah.
So
Probably
a couple
does that anymore.
times it popped out on the floor. So he goes to grab it. So at halftime, we talked about
It
it.
was Shelby, wasn't it?
First time it came out
I don't. No.
after
I think it was
we picked
Shelby.
up,
I remember the kid
next to the
though.
ball, whatever. Maybe it was a free throw line. We had to wait for him to get it. I went over to the coach and I said, "That comes out again. It's going to be a technical foul." And he said, "What do you mean technical foul? That's a piece of safety gear." I said, "It is if it's in place properly.
Yep.
If it's not in place properly, it becomes a hazard for a trip to other players on the floor." So his options are to put it in and keep it seated properly, or lay it over here so it doesn't cost him a technical or cost you a technical foul. And I think he was kind of stunned by my reasoning, but I think we got it right when we talked about it in the locker room, the way to present it to him. So I mean, it's always weird things
It's
like
weird
that, you know?
stuff. And I know that with us, it's always something.
So Ryan, you
strange.
still with us?
Nope.
Yeah.
There
Yeah,
he
I'm
is.
still here.
There he is. Yeah, there's always
Maybe
weird
he's
shit.
going into a dead zone in his car where he can't hear.
Well,
anything.
let's let Ryan and Kurt tell us some kind of crazy
Well,
situation
Kurt,
they had on the
as
floor.
far as what you guys are doing now, are you sticking straight strictly to high school?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. There was a time when I thought, well, maybe go to the Capital clinics, the state clinics, and they would pair us up with a couple of groups. They'd pair us up with like former Big Ten officials and talk about that and philosophy more than like 3-man positioning, which was really nice. And the guy asked me, he said, "Well, where do you want to go with this?" And I kind of gave him the short version of what I told you at the beginning. He's like, "Well, I really never had aspirations to go too far with it, honestly." And people just kind of said, "Well, you ought to." I said, "So I never really thought about going beyond high school." But that made me think about it. And I kind of asked around about, what it would take to get into, if I was going to do it. I thought, well, I'd like to try to go big at it. And I was still pretty young at the time and wasn't, I didn't have a family and any of that. So, but the process of getting to a higher level of college didn't seem like a whole lot of fun. So I decided to stick where I was at and have fun and get along with the guys that I work with every night. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, it takes a lot of work, and learning the different nuances between high school and college. Don did college, and I was fortunate enough to work in the CBA. So, you learn, I mean, man, there's a huge difference in levels of basketball like that. And trying to learn, sometimes you might have a high school game Friday night and then you're working a, CBA or a college game Saturday. Man, that messes with you a little bit. You really have to, I can remember the first couple of games I worked and at that level, and you have a tendency to call it like it's a high school game. Well, no, you blow the whistle and they look at you like you're stupid, like what? Like, no, that's legal. And I'm like, oh, it's one of those, and it takes a minute. It does. It's not easy. And I give it up to guys, like Ryan that does that, and Bill doesn't do it anymore, but at one time he was, and a lot of the guys that do it, they try to split time. I know Don did, and to try to do that, I mean, that's a lot harder than you think it is.
Well,
Because
doing
really
women's college ball, their rules are more in line with the high school rules. There's no difference between the guys and the gals in high school, and it's very similar in college with women. Now, the men's game, there are more little differences in the rules that you have to be prepared to call. But I still would have the differences, the sheet of differences that before every game that I did collegiately, I'd always go over and look at that just so it was, the last thing I thought about any specific rule that's different. I would have read the college rule for it before a game. But there weren't that many.
Yeah, well, that's good.
And moving up, that's the other thing you look at. Well, is it going to fit? Does the opportunity to move up or getting to the opportunity to move up fit your personal and professional life outside of, officiating? And I think that's why you find a lot of guys at the upper levels are, either working for themselves or they've got some sort of flexibility professionally that allows them to,
Sure.
Do what's required year round to make that happen. So.
Yeah, people say, "Wow, you must be good," and I would say, "Well, I'm decent, but I'm available." And being available is the big thing for people at any level. Sure, there's a lot of high school officials that would make good college referees. That would be great at an entry level, maybe even a Division II referee right out of the gate.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can't be dependable to be there, you're no good to a college assigner, because they can't wait when you're assigned to a 7:00 game at Bowling Green and you have to be there at 4:45, and you get off and all of a sudden you find out at 2:00 you're going to have to work overtime. You're SOL to get there. Now it's your job or your assignment. Your job comes first. You're not going to call an assigner and say, "Hey, I just found out I've got to work overtime. I can't make my assignment at Bowling Green tonight." What's that guy going to do? Pull a rabbit out of his hat at that time?
No.
And so that's a huge part of it, is being available. And I found that out, that what I was available for the first 7 years, I think 6 years that I worked collegiately, probably about the 7th year, I no longer became available for it. So my options to move up were stymied. I mean, there was no option. Right. I was, I was going to keep doing this, or I was going to clear myself out of there so somebody that's got a legitimate chance to move up can do that, because there are a lot of people now where we worked at Division IIIs and IIs that do move up. I've worked with a lot of great officials there, a lot of Division I officials, and they always treated me as an equal, and like a good partner should. I never had a problem with working with people that are better officials, working at a higher grade for a longer time and all that stuff. Never a problem in the girls level. Now, in the women's level, I should say. Now, in the men's level, and I was with Jimmy one night when we were early on down at Shelby. It was a snowy night doing JV game. And one official came from Findlay, one was coming from Toledo. A guy from Findlay, Sid, got there. The guy from Toledo called and said, "I don't know if I'm going to make it. We've had a tremendous snowstorm up here, just burst the snow that everything kind of shut down." So they came in at halftime of JV game and said, "One of you guys, we're going to need one of you guys to work the varsity game if he doesn't get here." So when we came in after the game had finished, the AD down there said, "Don, the coaches said that they want you to do this." And I said, whatever you need. So when I had my pregame with this guy, he said, "If you happen to see a call, a travel or anything in my area, don't call it. Okay. Only official I ever worked with in 40 years that told me something like that. And why? Because he was a collegiate official. He made it to the Big Ten eventually, but he was very, very protective of his image of a high school JV official calling something in his zone, or he was afraid, that you don't have the whistle discipline. He was afraid I might pick on something in his area like that. But he told me that while he was spraying his hair, and there's another image thing he had to do. But I mean,
we all had those
Jimmy,
guys.
you probably remember that night pretty good. And,
yeah.
when he told me that, and we talked about it going home, that SOB.
Well, we all had guys like that. But
yeah, they're
we've been very fortunate, I think, over our careers to have great crews. I know we work with a lot of great guys, including these two guys. And as we're closing here, Jimmy, you got anything to add to the discussion as we close?
Well, as Kurt was talking about his earlier years and stuff, I remember doing some of the 5th and 6th grade down at St. Mary's here in town. And I had worked with Kurt a couple of times. I had worked a Friday night game and then got up Saturday morning to work the kids' game. I said, in the one time, with that, they have a whole set of different rules. Now, I don't do that often that I would know all these rules. So if I didn't know it and the coaches were asking about it, I says, hold on. I called Kurt over and I says, what's the rule on this? What's the rule on that? Okay. And then one day the coach says, well, you can't do that. I said, wait a minute, coach, is that the rule? He goes, yeah. I said, I can change that rule to be to where it's correct. But I had the one game where a little girl come down, and with that floor down at St. Mary's as being a cafeteria floor, when the kids stopped, they kind of, got an extra 2-3 steps that you're going to leave go. You ain't going to call traveling every time. And finally, this one girl, she dropped the ball and walked away. And I looked over at Kurt and I'm saying, get that girl back over here. I want to talk to her, And he pointed and she walked over and I looked at her and said, now, next time when we have this happen, I said, get the ball to me or my partner. So we keep the game rolling. Kind of looked at me as if to say, yeah. Went about her business up and down a couple more times. I did it again. This time she slammed the ball and it went up in the air. Now I'm thinking on a Friday or Saturday night, I'd blow the whistle, coach would take that player out. I walked over to that coach. I said, Coach, I want number so-and-so on the bench with you. Because I'm figuring at this level, if they're not on the court, that's where the action is. And long story short, found out later this was Daddy's little girl. And I said, made perfect sense. Made perfect sense.
Hey, Kurt, I have a question for you, Monroeville basketball coaches. Who are some of the guys, or when did Jeff Skinner? I'd heard that name, and I'm thinking, where do I know it from? Where do I know it from? And then all of a sudden, I thought, I think it's Monroeville. What years did he coach basketball there? Do you remember?
I think he was my brother-in-law's coach, Skinner. I think.
What year would that have been? I remember it was after Augsburger. Am I correct?
In the 90s, right?
So Augsburger would have been done after 84.
Yeah, this was
okay. Well, then I bet he was the guy that came after the guy that took over for Augie. One of his assistants took over, did he?
Yeah.
Okay, it maybe
that sounds right, because there would have been probably early 90s.
That's what I'm thinking.
Because starting my time, I started with Jeff Winslow, and before Jeff was Don Farmer. I think for a year before that, Jack Ratliff was there, and then I'm trying to remember how far back, if Skinner was right before him. it would have been either right before Jack, or it would have been one before Jack. So it would have
Okay,
been probably early 90s.
Do you have any idea how Jeff Skinner's name would have come up to me?
No clue.
I was reading a book. He was Joe Burrow's high school basketball coach all 4 years.
Wow.
He started.
No kidding.
Joe Burrow started for him. Funny story in a book. It's a book that my brother-in-law gave me because he's from down there, and it's a fun book to read. Talks about him and his classmates starting out when they were like pee-wee ball and all that. Talked to a lot of people, and they keep going back and forth between names and stuff. Kind of hard to follow for somebody from up north here, but the read was really interesting. And for a long time, they thought Joe might be a college basketball player. He was that good at basketball, and the kids at Skinner's still teaching social studies or something at a junior high down there, and they have a no cell phone rule in the classrooms down there. And he said that book's probably 2 years old. He said that one day in class, his phone went off, and he looked down, and it was Joe. So he took the call, and right away the kids are going, "No, Mr. Skinner, no." And he said, "What's Joe Burrow?" And he holds it up so he can see the name on there. And I'll go, "Who's Joe Burrow?"
He's won a few games.
Yeah, he has. Yeah, so that was interesting to see that. When the guys that you see for a couple years and then they disappear where they end up. But he coached before down there, and then they didn't have much success. So it sounds thinking same problem he had at Monroeville probably.
Yeah.
So he's at the junior high, and then when Burrow comes along, they ask him to come back and coach. So, and he's out of the game now. I mean, he's enjoying. He's one of those guys that gets calls from him quite often.
Well,
That's pretty neat.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Kurt, for joining us tonight.
Sure.
We'll make sure that, tell your friends and family to watch us. You can watch us. See yourself and see how pretty you are on TV. And
say hi to Lindsay. I wondered when I saw something coming down here on the screen, I said, "What's Lindsay? Is she in there doing something?"
That was Cora. She was curious as to what was going on. So.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, tell Lindsay is that we said hi.
Yeah, all right.
Right.
Thanks
Hey,
again,
didn't you have a sister that sang the national anthem down at the state the one year when you were working?
Yeah, that's if you got time, that's an interesting.
No, go ahead.
Deal there.
Yeah.
So my youngest sister Audra. So I've got a younger brother, and then he's about 4 or 5 years younger than me, and then a sister who's a couple years younger than him, Lydia, and then there's Audra, who's the youngest. There's 11 years between her and I, and I was working my first girls state tournament game, and Jerry Snodgrass was down there. We were talking, and he was talking about what they were trying to do, getting people to sing the national anthem and whatever. And so I don't know if he'd heard, or I can't remember if I brought it up, whatever. My sister sings at a lot of the games, and so they had her send a tape down and all this stuff from the high school. She was still in high school. And so she got to go down for one of the boys' tournament games. Actually, I think it was I don't remember if it was I think it was a D2 game. So it would have been one of the bigger audience shot that year, 14,000 or so people there. And she got to go out on the floor ahead of time. And we got to be down there with her and everything. So that was a pretty cool experience for her and for mom and dad and I to be down there to see that. So that was a pretty cool thing. I don't know if they still do that with the state, but I know that was something that when Jerry was in, they did a lot of. They brought kids from all over the state down to do whatever talent they had. Some played an instrument, some sang it. So that's always pretty cool to see.
Well, yeah, that's great. And again, I want to go ahead.
Are you gonna have Grandma watch this show?
Oh,
yeah,
God.
I'll tell her about it.
Hi, Katie. Hey, next time you make a batch of oatmeal cookies, only oatmeal, feel free to send some over this way.
Make them sugarless.
You don't have to. Don't have to.
Watch it.
Hey,
I'll just
And just remember, Kurt, he is medicated now. So I apologize. I apologize for anything that, you know.
No, it has
All right,
nothing
sir.
to do with that. It has nothing to do. Hey, you
Thanks
know
again,
you
brother.
have Ryan on mute. Has he been trying to talk to us at all?
No, he's muted himself.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. All right. Hey, Kurt. We'll see you later, buddy.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for being with us, Kurt.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
All right. Now, before we go, I'd like to say our book is still available on Amazon. We are running a Valentine's Day special, the $14. And if you go to the Common Good, you can not only get it for $14, you can also get 2 for $25. I just beat down to the punch on that one. It is a good book, even though Jim lies through most of it, and that's fine.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You know, it is what it is. But we want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Also, upcoming, we have Mark Fogg coming back. We had a little technical glitch with his last show. So this time we will be live. So take the opportunity, reach out, message us. We can tell you the day and time he's going to be on. And hey, you can talk to us live and talk to a living legend from the radio. All right, guys. It's been great.
Good show.